Welcome to the teaching resource for new wave rock music. As you go through this module, you will learn what new wave music is, how it came about, what subgenre came before it, as well as other genres that have influenced its growth and resulting popularity. We will take a deeper look into different bands that represent the genre, how the new wave music industry rose to its fame, and a representative song that showcases exactly what the new wave set out to accomplish. After this video, you'll even be able to go watch a film that captures the new wave in its full essence. There are also further research materials at the end if you wish to learn more about the new wave subgenre.
To understand new wave music, we first must look at punk, and how it led to new wave. Towards the end of the 70s, punk rock as a musical form was set to fall apart. The excesses of the punk rockers at the time led to deep divisions within the scene, and public pushback against the style had left the rock scene with no clear successor. The scene split, with musicians taking it multiple directions, one of which would come to be called the new wave. This left behind the rough political nature of punk by introducing a simpler, more appealing sound that incorporated disco, pop, synthesizers, and reggae. In its early days, the identity of new wave was ill-defined. This would lead to groups, such as the Police, being called punk rockers, even though they would later come to be thought of as part of the new wave. New wave distanced itself from punk rock in a few major ways. It gained more pop characteristics with better refined sound, experimented more with synthesizers, and distanced itself from punk's absolute rejection of the mainstream. New wave was politically neutral and had no agenda in that field. They made their sound and look as mainstream as possible with the help of MTV and appearances that come across as clean-shaven and well put together.
To give a comparison between new wave and punk, we put together the characteristics of two bands, Public Image Ltd. And Sex Pistols. For Public Image, the lyrics were ironic and reflected on urban alienation through the focus of an artsy aesthetic. They had views on politics and social standings, but avoided creating any controversy with their songs. It was a form of stripped-down rock with influences from all over the world. Most common would be the influence from Jamaica, disco, pop, and synthesizers. They knew how to play instruments and sing professionally. They were not perfect nor prim or proper, but they tended to wear suits, look clean-shaven, and had an overall palatable look. As for the Sex Pistols, they were known for having songs that promote political agendas that were oftentimes controversial and dangerous. They were made up of band members that could barely play their instruments, with lead singers who couldn't sing. They created a take-no-prisoners attitude that often shunned any bands that experimented with anything but punk, and they had a look that was intentionally rough, dirty, and insulting.
Having been largely ignored in the United States up to this point, new wave began to catch on, ironically, around the time the Sex Pistols' final unfortunate tour in the US just ended. With many groups not wanting to be associated with the negative aspects of punk, a public effort was made for groups to be referred to as new wave rather than punk. With this, the groundwork for punk's demise and new wave's rise to fame was set in stone.
New wave got its start in the UK in the late 70s, alongside, or rather at the expense, of punk. At the time, new wave was considered almost interchangeable with punk, but that soon changed. As new wave began to gain new meaning, it defined the line between punk and itself. However, it would not truly catch hold until it reached America, where punk had experienced far less success and new wave prospered. This new sound contained enough of the anti-establishment vibe while never having to directly attack any political leaders as punk was known to do. Andy Summers, lead guitarist of the Police, put it best when he said that the band had the punk sound, but they don't insult or wreck studio offices.
New wave was the turning point when punk performers, for the most part, abandoned the wit, irony, outrageous flair, and the absurd politics to become more musically inclined, which landed them the commercial success that they've always wanted. New wave brought punk back to its roots by bringing back diversity to the genre with African American influences. As disco began to take over the disco industry, new wave performers began to add the dance floor spin to their music. This, in combination with a pop sound, made new wave music something people could dance to, something everyone could remember, and still have a hard rock feel that got people coming back for more.
An example of a new wave song would be Roxanne by the Police. This song uses the new wave's two criteria that establish a genre, a hook and a melody. This song's sound is very thin, opposed to the sound of punk. In fact, this piece was given a reggae sound that was considered punk suicide at the time, and it was one of the first songs by the Police that sealed their fate as new wave artists. The lyrics of the song were not violent, but they did tell a story of a man falling in love with a prostitute. It has the upbeat and offbeat with the drums, but creates a piece of art as opposed to the punk style that would not have the accuracy with its instrumentation playing. The tempo is more of a moderato, and the song really shows the talent that both Sting had as a singer and the band as a whole had as musicians. Real talent was very uncommon in the punk rock scene. Can't Stand Losing You, Surviving the Police was the film we chose to best suit new wave. This film's purpose is not to take a closer look into what the new wave was or how its sound came about. The movie maybe mentions the new wave only a handful of times, but by reading in between the lines, listening to how their music evolved, and observing how the sound of their band was influenced by socio-cultural trends and attitudes gives the audience a good idea as to how new wave music emerged. I suggest you watch this film and follow the guiding questions in the film's viewing guide. The film shows a band that started out as punk, evolved their sound over time, and formed one of the greatest new wave bands that came out of that era. We see their success, we hear their struggles as musicians, and the audience can observe how both of their components influence their music making process. The transition from punk rock to new wave was less of a deliberate choice to abandon punk, as it was a fight that they dealt with in maintaining punk credibility, which drove them further and further away from the harsh nature of the punk genre.
Thank you for listening to our teaching resource on the new wave rock music genre. As you see below, these are the modules, articles, and PDFs that we used for this presentation. If you would like to learn more, there are further research materials right here on the page with links provided, and those will take you to the articles themselves to learn more about this genre, how it came about, and what it influenced afterwards. Again, thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed.